iPhone 13 Pro Max review. Hello there. So, Apple has, like clockwork, produced a new iPhone, the iPhone 13. I've been using it daily for a couple of weeks now, and frankly, it feels like the filler episode of iPhones. Let's talk about that. But first, hi, I'm Benjamin Butcher, he, him, and I make videos about tech and gaming. If you could push one of the nice buttons down below, that would make me very happy. Okay, let me start off by saying that you should not buy this iPhone. If your phone is broken or ancient, you get a pass. If, however, you upgraded last year, there is no reason to upgrade again. The fact of the matter is that this is a really boring update. The biggest upgrade is for filmmakers, in my opinion, and side note that I love that Apple is raising the bar for video on mobile phones. The thing that bugs me, however, is that an improved camera is not, in my opinion, a good enough reason to release a new phone. Yes, I am aware there were a number of other things that Apple changed. The thing, though, that Apple has really pushed with this update is the release of cinematic mode. Here's the thing, though. While the cameras are technically better, the phone just isn't different enough to warrant upgrading. Take macro, for example. If you watched my iPhone 12 review, then you know that there was no macro on that iPhone and that I was sad about it. You'll also remember that I said that I actually didn't really need it because the zoom on the iPhone 12 is so good. So, of course, the next generation that Apple produces, it has macro in the camera. But if you look at these pictures side by side, can you honestly tell which is which? Because honestly, I had trouble. The macro on the 13 is really nice, but frankly, you can get very similar, if not equal, results on the 12. And again, just feels like we moved an inch and not a mile. Also, frankly, cinematic mode just isn't useful enough to be a major selling point. Yes, I know that filmmakers will love it, and I'm sure there are many people who are glad that it's there, but Apple's focus on it in their keynote is a clear demonstration of how little has changed on iPhone 13. Something else that really bothers me about the new iPhone is that it does not work with previous generation cases. To be clear, it just barely doesn't work, mostly because the shape of the camera bump enclosure has gotten just a few millimeters bigger. This change was highly avoidable. It bothers me a lot because it creates mountains of e-waste. I say this over and over again, and it's just that Apple talks a lot about caring about the environment, and then they make decisions like this which are clearly only about money and definitely not the environment, and it makes me want to support that brand a lot less. Obviously, the iPhone 13 is still a great phone, even though it's still using Lightning port. Ultimately, though, it looks and feels and performs almost exactly like its predecessor, except for the fact that it's actually 14 grams heavier than last year. Not a big deal, but interesting to note. There's so little that's exciting about this phone that I'm actually going to talk about something that I missed when I was reviewing the iPhone 12, and which also applies to the 13 as well. That is ceramic shield. Sometimes Apple introduces a new feature or a gimmick, and honestly, I wasn't really sure how seriously to take this one. Frankly, I'm flabbergasted at how tough the new screens are. I don't know how recyclable they are, but frankly, I've just stopped buying screen protectors for my iPhones, which is a good demonstration of how good it is. Arguably, it also means less e-waste, which is really nice. One time, I dropped it 6 feet onto concrete where it bounced into a gravel pit. I'm not joking. If it had been a previous model, my guess is that it would have absolutely destroyed it. I know that it would have broken an Android because I've seen them break under similar strain. Amazingly, however, all that I have from that accident is a barely perceptible scratch on the right side of my screen. It is very small, one which is so small that sometimes I forget about it. Okay, so since there was really nothing exciting, or very little that was exciting about the new iPhone 13, let's talk about some things that would really move the needle for me. Firstly, USB-C ports on all new iPhones. Secondly, a full closed-loop system of recycling for every iPhone that's made. I know Apple is working towards this, but frankly, we need it now. We needed it 5 years ago. The other thing to note, I suppose, is that Apple doesn't actually sell the iPhone 12 Pro Max anymore. So if you were desperate for extra screen real estate or a camera with optical image stabilization, and you don't want to save yourself some money and buy a 12 Pro Max from TELUS or Rogers, then you may have reason to get the new iPhone. Ultimately, though, what I've found elicits the greatest joy for me is jumping 2 or 3 generations. Now, you might think that I'm being a cheapskate, but honestly, it's very refreshing and it's also better for the environment. Okay, I have one final rant, but if you came for the review, you can leave now. The review is over. Okay, here's the final rant. There's something else about this phone that bugs me, a thing which sits much closer to the heart of iPhone's brand, and really the heart of most phones being made today. While MagSafe turned out to be a much cooler addition than expected, the reality is that in my opinion, the entire smartphone industry is in a giant rut. Do you remember when the iPhone first came out, how exciting it was, how different? That's because phones at the time were all doing the same boring, terrible shit. Now, to be honest, to be fair, phones have come a long way, but the reality is that the improvements are coming by inches instead of yards, and it's time for someone to really change the game again. I am hoping that this comes in the form of augmented reality headsets very soon, and I'm very much hoping it doesn't come from Facebook, but for the time being, we'll have to wait and see. Anyway, that's pretty much it. I'm BRBTG, and as always, I'll be right back.